Anyone can do this. You might be looking for a way to make a keepsake for a lost one, or you might have had a honeymoon and you've got some beach sand. I've been playing around with this stuff. It's like a copper tape. All we do is we peel off the backing and just begin to wrap this around. And we're just going to get rid of that whole middle section. Right, we are back with another resin art video. This one is so easy. Anyone can do this. Really can. You may not make jewelry, you know, you might be looking for a way to make a keepsake for a lost one, or you might have had a honeymoon and you've got some beach sand, something like that. But this one kind of come around by chance. You know how my brain works, guys. You may remember in the previous video we made this like fake, no, it wasn't that one. Get the right one down. This one is like a fake abalone inlay ring. This was just to the side, obviously, because I've not long filmed it. And I've been playing around with this stuff. It's like a copper tape. It's real copper. It's self-adhesive. You just peel off the backing. And it was kind of sitting next to it. And my brain clicked and I thought, well, what if we could use this inside one of these inlay rings? Now, these are on Amazon. You get lots of different sizes in the box. You can also get different coloured ones. I'll pop the links in the description. You've seen me use these before on the channel. So what I did is I started toying around with this, and I want your help with this. You could come up with different ideas that my brain hasn't yet thought of. So pop them in the comments. I think I'm going to show you where I am at the moment, kind of how far I've got. I think together we could really crack some different ideas for this, but there's going to be a few different things that we can do. So I realized that it wasn't the right width to fit. This tape is a 4mm and this gap in here is 3mm. So what I was doing was painstakingly trimming down the sides, and it was just inconsistent. You know, I couldn't quite get it to fit perfectly the whole way around. So I had a look on Amazon for a 3mm and they had it. Watch this. It's like it was made to be. Honestly, guys, when I say this is simple, it really is simple. So what we're going to do is, it's so easy, guys. It really is. Just cut it with some scissors. Then all we do is we peel off the backing and just begin to wrap this around. I mean, look at that already without the backing. It looks crazy good, but it doesn't stop there. So I just get the backing started. I'm not going to peel off the whole lot, obviously, because it's so thin. It's just going to gather up and stick together. So what I do is I just get that started on the inlay, like so. And I'm just going to take a paintbrush and just begin to brush that down so it sticks. And it gives it such a nice polished copper look. All I'm doing now is, you can apply some tension to this. It is quite strong, but don't pull too hard. You'll kind of get used to the strength of it as you go. Have a little play around with it to begin with. I'm just going to keep going round, and then every, say, maybe quarter turn, I'm going to take the paintbrush again and then just give that a good rub. And just keep going. I mean, you don't have to keep going, but for what I'm going to show you so far, where I'm at, it will make sense. I mean, I think the more you do this as well, it's going to become a lot quicker. You could do this whilst you're watching your favourite TV show. So I'm just going to keep going until I've kind of got some depth inside that cavity. And once you get to the end of your tape, just use the brush again. Don't brush against, don't brush that way. Only brush this way, because it's going to lift that. You can barely see it, but we can make that go away completely with what's to come. So just go around. If you've got any small kinks, just go over them again with the brush and just work them out. You can just, if if the finish isn't perfect, just go around another time with a little bit more tape. But you can see the kind of depth that I've got. So there is still room to work with. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring this up a little bit more because I didn't cut my tape long enough. So I'm going to go around it a couple more times, just bring that up a tiny bit more. And this way is much quicker. I've kind of got the tape held in a certain way, and I can turn the ring whilst peeling the backing off so that it's kind of feeding onto the inlay as I'm turning it, if that makes sense. So I'm using my index finger to peel away the backing and using my thumb to create a bit of tension. So already we can make this a lot quicker. If it snaps like it just did, it doesn't matter. If we need to add more, just go over it. The seam will become invisible underneath. But luckily that snapped at the correct depth that I need it to be. So this is the stage where I kind of got to, and I thought, well, it looks okay as it is with a bit of a polish and maybe, you know, the epoxy just to raise that up so it's flush with the outside bezel, the outside part of the ring. It actually looks really, really nice as it is. But then my brain got ticking. What if we could, I don't know, personalize this? So what I did then was I just used a cocktail stick and I began to freehand on the surface of the ring. And it worked, but my handwriting's it's not brilliant. So what I did was I thought, oh, you know, you can get those punches that you punch metal with. I thought, well, what if we could use those? So I bought some on Amazon, hoping that these would fit inside this. But if you see, it doesn't quite fit inside to be able to punch the initials or wording inside. So what I did then was cut another strip of the tape, got an old coaster mold, peeled off the backing and just stuck it to the silicone mat. You see where I'm going with this. Okay, and then I just picked the words that I wanted. To say you want love, I just get out all of the letters, and then from the word E, I found this quite tricky, but you can use the reflection of the tape to see the stamp on the bottom. That's what worked easier for me. And then just with a gentle push. I mean, I'm not sure about this yet. This is kind of where I need your advice. You'll see when I get this on the actual ring. So I'm going to work backwards. So now I need to use the V. Spacing can be quite tricky to get right, but it is just a snip of tape. So if it goes wrong, you just snip off another bit. So I don't know whether it would be best to kind of mark this with ink, maybe dab it in. I haven't got that far yet. So we could then peel that off carefully, otherwise it's all going to stick together. Then starting at the other ends, not the love ends, we're going to begin to pop that over the top, like so. And again with the paintbrush. Then when we get to the wording, we don't want to rub too hard over that because we don't want to lose the wording. Just do it with your, kind of do it with your hands and then just rub the end down. So you can see it's working. I mean, that's not a perfect finish with the stamping, but it does work. It does work. So that's kind of where I got with that idea. But then I thought of something different. So I'm just going to peel off that wording because I don't want that on there for this idea. But you can incorporate both ideas. So where we finished off with the tape, if I can find it, obviously there will be that small tape line. It's just there if you can see it. I thought, what if we cut out a section of the copper? This is why the depth is quite important, because you can inlay in an inlay. So we can get rid of that seam, that kind of joint there, or that finish line. Just going to take a ruler and get a straight line, just using my craft knife. I'm going to score just lightly. You can use the lines on the ruler as a guideline, and just score a square shape on the surface of the tape. And that joint mark that I can barely find will be gone. So I'm going to mark where I want it roughly. I think I need to go a bit wider than that, because the joint line is actually there, Dan. So say there. I'll just do it freehand. And I'm just going to keep going deeper into the tape until I hit the bottom of the inlay. Well, just be careful, I don't want you cutting yourself. And then we can just begin to peel that section carefully, working inwards from each cut into the middle of the square, because you don't want to peel it back that way. Let's see how easy this is. And we're just going to get rid of that whole middle section, like so, hopefully. Now, all we need to do now is just carefully trim away any areas that the knife didn't quite get to. And just using a stick, just going to rub that down, like so, until we get a really nice cut finish. So this is where we're at. It looks really professionally made. You wouldn't think that this was just made with some copper tape. Really cheap stuff. I think I paid £8 for 2 rolls of that, and you can imagine how far you could go with this. So yeah, I mean, if you wanted to just keep it copper and not cut that section out and just as it is, that's completely up to you. You could potentially cut different shapes for this next bit, but it looks professional so far, with a bit of a polish. It looks like it's been made by a proper jeweler. So now we have this area here that we can infill with, like I said at the beginning, maybe a sand from a holiday, maybe some cremations from a loved one. You could really tailor this, and you can get these bezels in solid silver. I believe you could probably get them in gold as well. Just make sure that the tape, these do come in different widths, as I showed you. Make sure the tape fits perfectly inside there. So yeah, this is kind of where we're at. But a huge shout out to my channel members, anyone who's bought me a coffee or a super thanks, and to all our subs. If you haven't subbed, hit that button for me. Okay, so I'm going to take mine a little bit more onto a technical side, but you wouldn't have to do this. You could explore much easier ways of just infilling that. But when you're doing this, when you're infilling this area, keep it flush with the top of each side of the tape. If you go over that, the final finish is going to bulge. So just bear that in mind. Keep only filling up to the lip of each side. So what I want to do, because I want this is going to be my personal ring with some of my mum. My late mum is going to be incorporated into this as well. So I want it to look, you know, special. I want it to be special because I'm going to be wearing it. So this is some abalone shell, some real abalone shell. I bought a real shell a couple of years back, and I smashed it into pieces. So I'm going to sort through and find a piece that I can trim down to fit inside this gap. But the idea, what I want it to be slightly smaller than the square, so that I can kind of fill in around it with the ashes. So I found quite a thin piece that should be around the same depth as the copper. So all I'm going to do, it's a really nice colour to it as well, is just begin to trim this down. Now you can, if you've got a rotary tool, use that, but do not inhale shell dust. It's really dangerous. I was told that a long time ago by a follower that used to work with shells. I'm just going to be using some sharp wire snips and just begin to just carefully take off a bit at a time around the hole. I'm going to start going larger than what I need and work off areas bit by bit until, you know, I'm just going to keep going around. You get what I'm saying. So you'll see when I pop this in, hopefully, it keeps bringing out, it's so small. Once I play around with this and get it positioned perfectly right, I'll have a small gap down each side of the shell, tiniest of gaps that I could then incorporate the ashes into. And this is the bit I'm nervous about. I'm going to add a tiny bit of super glue into this gap so I can glue the shell in just to position it and hold it in place for now. But I just hope it doesn't bond instantly because I want to be able to move it into the right orientation before it bonds completely. Which is good. I've still got some movement on there. So I'm going to position that and just let it set. What I could now do, I think I'm going to try and do it, is do the wording on the back now. So I'm going to put mum, for instance, on the back. So in theory, it will probably work better this way because I can push the tape around these gaps and it will give me a line to snip and finish it off without any other adding to any lines. It's just making sure that the mum word is kind of centered perfectly on the back of the ring. So I've cut off more than what I need. So I know I can wrap that excess around. So I can kind of stamp mum there. So yeah, I mean, it's upside down for a start. It's not perfect, but I mean, it's for me. And I know it's there. And it's centered perfectly. So yeah, now all I need to do is just pop in mum and finish it off. What I could do is just very carefully using a stick, very, very lightly, just go over that lettering. Just make it a bit more visible. Much better. Okay, so I've got some of my mum's ashes here. I'm not going to keep it on camera too long because obviously I don't want to trigger anything off emotion wise. But I am going to do this bit silently just because, you know, it's quite sentimental. Yeah, I don't really want to talk through this part. But I think I'm going to add a black tint to this and just, yeah, infill these gaps around the sides of the shell. Okay, so this is where we are at. I mean, you don't have to do the next step. I mean, I trust my craftsmanship enough to be able to wear this of, say, special occasions, etc. But it's not 100% protected. I mean, you've got that raised area on the outside still, which could kind of protect what's inside the inlay to an extent, but it would only take something sharp to get in there and kind of tear that copper tape. I mean, what I did was I layered the ashes with super glue and just went over 3 times and just built that up to fill that gap and then just cleaned off any areas that needed cleaning off, but I am going to protect the whole thing with a very, very tiny amount of epoxy. And out comes the tumbler turner, cup turner machine. Yeah, so you know what I'm like. I'm a complete and utter budget when it comes to stuff. I mean, the ring doesn't, you've seen me slide the rings onto these bits of tape before. So an 11 fits over this rod, a 12 with that thickness tape. But this one doesn't fit. So just improvise. As long as it's stable and it turns and it's straight, just improvise. So I'm going to use this. I'm just going to slide the ring on there and just wrap some tape around this, and just so it holds. I mean, there's always something around lying around that you could just tape onto the end of this to make smaller rings fit on. And again, you know, I'm just a budget. You can buy the attachments. I've said this before. Different places that do them, that slide on with the different size ring things. I can't remember where they're from. But, you know, if it works, doesn't it, guys? That's the thing. I mean, it saved me a couple of quid in buying one of the attachments, I suppose, just rooting around and finding something that's something that's going to work. I mean, that's fairly straight. I'm just going to mix up a small amount of the collab resin for this. Now I'm just going to let that sit for a good 40 minutes or so, just to degas and thicken up so it's not going to drip off. Okay, it's been about 40 minutes, so I'm just going to drip by drip begin to add the epoxy to the inside, not worrying if there's any mess on the sides of the ring at the moment. I can tidy that up as we go along. Might be easier flicking the switch and doing this part in reverse. Yeah, we'll do that. There we go. So I'm just going to keep applying this until it's level with the outside of the channel. Sorry, I think I had my phone orientation in the wrong the wrong way with the last bit. Hopefully I can fix that during editing. So I'm just using a tiny pointy swab from Little Windows to just clean up any excess spillage on the sides. Anything else afterwards I can kind of clean up once it's set and it's dry. Now we just wait for this to cure. Okay, it is now the next morning. Before I left the studio, I really did add some extra tape just in case, because I had a vision that it was just not going to be supported enough. But yeah, it's all cured now. We can take it off and have a closer look. As always, give the video a thumbs up, drop me a comment. If you haven't subbed, hit that button for me. It is free. And again, in the comments, let me know what you do with this. Such a simple thing to do. A bit of tape and a ring blank. And yeah, of course, my mum did deserve something a bit more precious than the stainless steel, but I want to show you what you can do with really cheap hardware. And I mean, it's priceless to me, so it doesn't really matter if it's stainless steel. But the colouring in that piece of shell is incredible. Really loving the finish on this. Okay, the wording could have been a bit better, but like I said, it's still kind of the beginning, but it looks absolutely incredible. And imagine what you could put in there instead. You really could use your imagination and use different embellishments. Is that the right word? Yeah, I think so. Right, one thing left to do. I'm going to give this a slight polish with some cleaning stuff. It's called the pink stuff. Should bring that up really nice. Just this stuff, really, really cheap. Just squirt some on my paper towel. And then just give it a good rub. Make sure your epoxy is definitely cured solid before you do anything like this. And this is great for polishing any resin. You might have got piece of resin jewellery that's got scratches on, this stuff works brilliant at getting them out. And there she is, looking much better, all polished up. Let's try it on. Yeah, of course, make sure the ring fits before you commit to making something like this. But it is absolutely stunning, and that shell, again, the colour is incredible. It's upside down, but it's fine. Right, I hope you enjoyed that one. Like I said, I went into a more technical side of this, but you could make it so much easier, so simple. Just wrapping that tape around, keeping it plain if you want, or cutting out that section and putting whatever you want inside. Hope you enjoyed that one. I will see you for the next one. I will cherish this forever. Bye for now.